This is Josh with the morning show, and sitting down here, we have a wonderful couple of guests. But before I get into that, man, how about that snow? I absolutely love it. And if you don't love it, well, you know, maybe you shouldn't be here in Colorado. It's April, everybody. Goodness gracious. Got to get used to it. So thank you very much for tuning in. We're just waiting for a little sign from our producer, which we are good to go. We have some special guests in the studio today. We have Kat Russell, who is the Director of Strategic Marketing for Morgan Adams Foundation. How are you, Kat?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you very much for being here. And the next person doesn't really need an introduction, but kind of does as well. Sarah Duke. Sarah Duke, she is actually with Morgan Adams Foundation as well. And you also know her here in K4CO Radio as well. She is the Major Gifts Officer for Morgan Adams Foundation. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How
it's
are
wonderful.
you?
I'm good. And I like the snow, but I don't want to be cold anymore. And I'm a native to Colorado. I'm not going anywhere.
You're just going to have to wait about a month or month and a half.
I know. End of May. I will just be there. So, yes. So, yeah, I'm super excited and love my new role with Morgan Adams Foundation. It's near and dear to my heart. So it's very exciting to be on this side of things.
And it is an amazing foundation. Cancer is the leading disease-related cause of death in children. In fact, 1 in every 330 kids is diagnosed with cancer across the United States each year. And yet, pediatric cancer research is seriously underfunded, and that is where Morgan Adams Foundation comes in.
That is true.
Kat, tell us a little bit about the Morgan Adams Foundation.
I thought you would never ask. So we are probably one of the oldest standing pediatric cancer research foundations here in the U.S. We were founded 25 years ago. We were founded by a bereaved family who lost their own daughter, Morgan Adams, to a brain tumor in 1998. And I'll go into that history a little bit more. But our primary focus is the bench science research. And if you think about that term, bench science, it really comes from scientists sitting at the bench, looking into microscopes, that really early stage, seed stage research before anything makes it onto clinical trials, you know, getting into where kids are actually getting the kind of treatments. So, and this is where really some of the most innovative advancements happen in this particular side. It's, you know, it's anything from like cutting edge immunotherapy to gene mapping, where we're finding the gene markers that are actually the root causes of the disease and that could lead to possibly personalized care, personalized treatments for cancer. So really the cutting edge research that's happening at this stage, but it's also the hardest dollars for researchers to secure because these are just ideas at this point. They're really good ideas, but they haven't necessarily proved their merit.
Right.
So it's hard to get those dollars secured. So that's where we step in because that's the funding gap. And that's where we can do our due diligence to make sure that gap is closed and help give them the money to prove their merit and then push those ideas down the research path until they can actually reach the clinical trials.
Well, in my mind, that would be the most important part where the money goes because ideas then can become reality. So it's kind of surprising that it's very underfunded with those ideas.
It is, and I won't name any names, but other organizations kind of shy away from those ideas because, you know, they want to make sure that their funding goes to, they want the cure rates. You know, they want to say, hey, this works. We function more like a startup and we have to. We're small and we're scrappy. Our staff, you know, we run super lean. I still believe we're the best kept secret in Colorado, even though we're one of the oldest standing foundations, because we don't spend money on marketing. That's where I step in. I'm new to the organization. One of my goals is to change that to make us no longer the best kept secret in Colorado. But it's, you know, we are, sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but we aren't afraid to fail. we understand that some of our best learnings come from, studies that might not have been exactly the result that we wanted, but we can learn, oh, this didn't work, but you know what? This could. So let's
Right.
try this and we'll move on. And our researchers, we have extraordinarily close relationships with our researchers, and we know them really well. And, we know the science really well. Our 25 years of doing this, our founders and our leaders have gotten to know, they've gotten to know the science really, really well as well. So they understand, they've grown up along with a lot of their researchers. So they get the ideas that work. And so many of the ideas that we funded 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago are now standard practice of care. And it's so exciting to see these, cutting edge ideas that we're funding now, knowing that, a few years down the lane, this will be the standard practice of care too. So
Yeah, it sounds like a long time, but it takes a while for this to get, I don't know, proven, get research behind it and everything. So
it does. There's a lot of regulations that go into play into making sure, and especially with kids, which we understand. But, for us, it just can't happen quick enough.
And speaking about kids, I do want to get into how Morgan Adams Foundation was originally started. You said, and I think this is one of my favorite things about some amazing organizations out there, is that it is started through passion, unfortunately a lot of times through tragedy.
Yeah.
But go into a little bit more about the start of Morgan Adams Foundation.
Absolutely. So Morgan Adams was a real, live, wonderful human being. She was a healthy, vibrant, happy 5-year-old little girl. She was the daughter of our founder, Joan Slaughter, and her husband, Steve Adams, who has since unfortunately died a few years ago. And when she was 5 years old, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, glioblastoma multiforme. At the time, there was only about 10% survival rates. Unfortunately, it's still about that same survival rates today. So Morgan passed away 11 months later after her diagnosis. And, Joan still says that was the hardest thing ever to be told by the doctors that there's nothing else we can do. We've run out of treatment options. She's not responding to this. We can't do anything else. And so after a couple years after Morgan died and they kind of came out of that initial grief stage, she and her husband joined the Oncology Advisory Board at the Children's Hospital of Colorado to understand what the problem was. Why aren't there more treatment options for cancer, for pediatric cancer, especially for brain tumors? And just understanding the lack of funding and the research dollars and just the lack of attention that pediatric cancer is getting, they said, well, okay, we can sit on the sidelines and complain about it, or we can go do something. So they set out and got, Steve was a photographer and really big in the Colorado art scene. And they got a bunch of friends together and held an art auction and raised a few, thousands of dollars and funded their first research study at Children's Hospital. And that event turned into one of our signature events called ARTMA. It's an incredible event. It happens every other year biannually. And that was the start of the Morgan Adams Foundation. 25 years later, we've funded now nearly $12 million in research. We have now gone on to have a named brain tumor lab. It's a very long name. It's called the Morgan Adams Foundation Pediatric Cancer Research Program, and it's located at Children's Hospital in Denver. And it is really one of the top 2 pediatric brain tumor labs in the world. The other one that has as esteemed is in Germany. And our research work collaboratively with that same lab in Germany to share ideas. They're very open and collaborative. Our data is all open. We're not trying to make millions. We're trying to find a cure, and that goes hand in hand for everything. So while we did start focused on brain tumors, we're now into many other types of cancers. We're launching a very, very robust pediatric leukemia program this year, moving into osteosarcoma, bone cancer as well, standing up a a solid tumor program with Phoenix Children's, a partnership. So we've got a lot of other big things happening as well.
That is amazing how it's grown so much over the years.
And we're only getting started.
And just getting started. Exactly. If you're just tuning in, we're sitting down with Kat Russell, Director of Strategic Marketing for Morgan Adams Foundation, and Sarah Duke, Major Gifts Officer. It is morganadamsfoundation.org. You can check it out. And I did want to go back. What did you say is the survival rate of pediatric cancer?
Yeah, so it's about 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 kids survive their diagnosis. But it's that rate is actually misleading. It is because the survival rate, if you've survived your cancer 5 years, you're considered a survivor. But the problem with pediatric cancer is the treatments that these kids are given, the vast majority of them are designed for adults. So on a child's body, they're incredibly harsh. And so even if a kid does make it past that 5-year mark, the vast majority of the kids go on to have relapses. A lot of the relapses aren't treatable, or they'll go on to develop secondary cancers from the radiation that was used to cure their first cancer. Or they'll go on to have these horrible, devastating neurological or biological side effects that just really dramatically affect their daily standard of living. So the treatments that we have today are just horrifically failing our children. And the fact that, as you said, less than 4 to 8% of the national research dollars go to pediatric cancer, yet it is the leading cause of death by childhood disease in the country, and 4 to 8% of those dollars are going to pediatric cancer research. I mean, we're as a country are failing our kids,
Right.
So it's sad, and it really, you're left. And on a side note, the pharmaceutical companies aren't doing their part either. They chase where the dollars are, and the pediatric cancer just doesn't get the awareness. If you think about all the awareness that goes to breast cancer, to pancreatic cancer, to lung cancer, there's a lot more numbers there too, but there's just not the awareness of pediatric cancer. So, and it infuriates us who live and breathe this, because they're happy to put a kid on their commercials, right? But they're not doing much to actually help the problem. So it's left to, unfortunately, a lot of bereaved parents to get together and fill the gaps by raising money on the backs of their children that they've lost to these horrible diseases.
And it does make sense when you talk about it, just because a lot of the treatment for this is stuff for even adults, that it really just destroys their body. And these are kids trying to actually even grow to start. So really makes sense. Sarah, you're the Major Gifts Officer with Morgan Adams Foundation. Go into a little bit more the need. Why is there a need for this research?
There is huge need for this research. I mean, when I first heard that 4 to 8% of the national funding goes toward these kiddos that are suffering with cancer, when people hear that, it makes the world stop for a moment. Everyone knows someone that is affected with cancer. It is so rampant in our world. And to think that our kiddos are the ones that are suffering it just blows my mind, to be totally honest, that they're so neglected, and it's a huge need. That's what brought me to this foundation. We met Joan Slaughter and the team last year, and I loved her passion for the mission. I loved that they were going after it, and I'm always a champion, a little bit of the underdog. And for my 15 years of nonprofit work that I've done, it has almost always been around kiddos, because they are our future. They are the innocent heartbeats who need all of this. So I am championing people not only for the awareness to get Morgan Adams more known, but to also get funding. Kat will go into a little bit about this new research that has just come on about 4 weeks ago, and it is absolutely amazing, and it's going to change the world. And we need money to make this actually go to clinical trials, to save lives. And the thought that this dawned on me a week or two ago when Kat and I were talking, in our lifetime, we could actually see a cure for cancer. And that thought to me is amazing. If we can help save lives by having these amazing doctors that this foundation is a part of, what I wouldn't want to be a part of anything else. And I love that we are at the beginning of the journey. As Kat mentioned, it's bench science and it's seed science. But if you think about all of the trees that are around us, they have to start with a seed. It always starts with that original moment. If you think about building a house, you have to have the foundation first before you have everything else. And for me, it is raising those dollars and funds and getting volunteers, however people can get involved. I mean, if you can think you can be a part of the start of curing cancer, that is my complete mission with this foundation.
Tell us, Kat, a little bit more about this new research that she's mentioning,
Oh my gosh.
if you can.
I can absolutely.
Okay.
You won't get me to shut up about it. So this is actually just one of so many exciting projects that we are helping to fund. And we've actually been funding this particular research for a really, really long time because it's very near and dear to our hearts. It's taken a long time for us to get it to this stage just because there was a lot of legislation in the way that I can go into detail if you want to learn more about that. But so there's a type of brain tumor called the DIPG, diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, if you want to know the full definition. And it's a terminal diagnosis for a child because it's a tumor that grows in the brainstem and in a specific area in the brainstem called the pons, which controls really vital functioning like breathing. And so and because it's a diffuse tumor, it actually creeps into like the other healthy living tissue. And so it's inoperable because kids, anytime they would try to operate, kids would die on the operating table. So it's just horrific.
And that makes sense, right by the brainstem, right there.
Yeah. And so it responds a little bit to radiation, but not much. So you can buy maybe a couple months, but usually it's kids live maybe less than a year after diagnosis. We had one family that is near and dear to our hearts whose child lived less than 20 days after diagnosis. And so it's a horrific, horrible, devastating diagnosis. And for, decades, people have been trying to figure out what we can do to solve this. And so, but because it was inoperable, you tell me if I'm going way too into detail. Because it was inoperable, we couldn't even get a biopsy of it. And it's impossible to really do any research on it without a biopsy because you're just looking at, dead tumors that were donated to the labs. And you can't really learn the biology of a tumor when it's not a living, breathing tissue, right? So this is actually a wonderful story. But Joan, our founder, once science had advanced enough that the biopsy technologies, we had a few doctors saying, I think it's advanced enough that I think we can it's safe to biopsy now. And so they, demonstrated that to her. And so Joan actually went to DC, our founder, and argued in front of the NIH and in front of Congress, I believe, and said, this is safe to biopsy. She had, everybody present. She got denied, I believe, twice because they just weren't on board because, no one wants kids dying on the tables, right?
Right.
So lo and behold, she went to an international conference and met a lovely French researcher, doctor, who said, we've been biopsying DIPG kids for years and got her to come testify, and then it got deemed safe. So, but it was because of Joan's fight and Joan's, networking that we got that biopsied. Once we got that biopsied, we were then able to collect the cell tissue, study the cell tissues, and learn what the root cause of these tumors were. So fast forward now, we've still been funding a few other studies. And recently we've identified, I say we, I had nothing to do with this, but the researchers that our studies have funded have identified a very specific protein called the CD99 protein that is the cause of this tumor. And through their research, they now have identified two separate types of immunotherapy treatments that can target the protein. One is a CAR T cell. It's actually a logic-gated CAR T cell. T cell is our we have T cells. There are like a white blood cell that it's our own immunotherapy. Any kind of immunotherapy is kind of retraining our own cells to fight cancer as if they would fight any other diseases. So it reprograms them. We take our own cells out and reprogram them and tell them what to fight. Logic gated CAR T cells actually goes one step further, and it trains them to say, if this doesn't work, then try this. I know it's bizarre. Don't ask me how they do this, but they do it. And so it actually makes these T cells function even more like our own white blood cells. And the other one is they've got an antibody that actually targets the CD99 protein. And so both of these treatments have been extraordinarily successful. They've now advanced into in vivo testing, which is live animal testing. And so they have these DIPG tumors in mice. And with both of these treatments, the DIPG tumors are eradicated. They're completely gone. There is zero sign of these tumors. This was an incurable disease for decades, and it is gone in these mice. These mice are dying of old age. I get chills every time I say that. And so and not only, what is even more exciting, I'm almost ready to cry when I talk about this. This CD99 protein is found in a bunch of other both childhood cancers and adult cancers. So if this proves to be successful in human trials, this could be the biggest breakthrough in cancer treatment in our lifetime, legitimately. So we need to raise $7 million.
If you're listening right now, go to morganadamsfoundation.org. There's a beautiful donate button. Start with $1 million. If you don't have that, then do what you can.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is, to me, that was my first day, my first introduction, day one on the job, is I went and met these doctors, and I was so overwhelmed. And I thought, wait, you're actually curing this? How is this even possible?
Yeah.
And it is actually a very amazing study that, these mice, how do you cure an incurable disease?
I know.
I am so glad that these brains and doctors are
I
doing what they're
know,
doing.
absolutely. And it is over hundreds of trials of other therapies and treatments. And, this is the first one that has had this level of success. So it's exciting, and it cannot get pushed to bedside therapy fast enough. So we're trying to raise this money very, very quickly.
What is the time frame anticipated for human trials of this?
It depends. It depends. I don't even know if I'm able to answer that because there's so many factors that come into play. Yeah. But the first thing that comes first is raising this money, and so we're exploring a lot of different routes to get this funded. But it does, it's really exciting that it has, a lot of other opportunities to help other patients dealing with cancer, including a lot of other much more prevalent cancers. But our primary focus right now is these kids that have these devastating diagnoses, because we've watched kids die from this for so many years. So
You have a lot of passion speaking about this.
I do.
You've been doing this for a while. What got you into it? I'm very curious about that.
Believe it or not, I have not been doing this for a while.
Okay, it sounds like you've been doing this forever.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll take that as an amazing compliment. Yeah. So I got introduced to Morgan Adams a little bit over a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And I was in advertising marketing my whole career, and I fell in love with Joan and the mission, and I was so inspired by what they're doing and how hard they have fought to even get this, and it crushes me once you find the data, and watching these kids, and half of our staff are bereaved parents, and the fact that they're out here every day, in fact, half of them left corporate America to work for a fraction of what they were being paid,
right,
to really fight for this, right? And I was Joan retired me. I'm like, I'm by my agency life, I'm ready to do this. And I feel like this is what this is absolutely the perfect way to, sail my career off into the distance.
Right.
So it is such a remarkable organization, and it's what they're doing is so exciting. That is just one of the amazing studies. I mean, we're looking at like I mentioned, we've got a partnership with the Osteosarcoma Institute in Dallas. And one of the trials we're funding there is the first breakthrough. It's a drug trial that we're pushing through. It's the first breakthrough in osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer that 30% of kids, I believe, die from, that are diagnosed with that. I could have that stat wrong. Forgive me if I do. But it's the first breakthrough in osteosarcoma in 40 years. This is the first time in 40 years that there's been a new treatment identified in that cancer.
Wow.
So, and it's very exciting. It's a very, very promising drug.
Yeah.
So
I believe we're actually funding around 33 different.
yeah, it's about that.
trials.
Yeah,
Okay.
across 5 nationally esteemed organizations, we do fund a lot of what we
different
fund here.
programs.
Yeah, a lot of different programs, but we do fund a lot at Children's Hospital Colorado just because we've got such a great relationship with them. And that was really one of Joan and Stephen's missions, was to make sure that when they wanted to make sure that any child in the Rocky Mountain West, when they're diagnosed, they didn't have to travel to the coasts to get the cutting edge, best quality care. So they really did make sure that the best of the best came to Colorado so that they could get the best quality care. And they've achieved that hands down. So, I mean, the leukemia program at Children's is incredible too. And that's the most common cancer that kids get. So,
Yeah, what I also love about Joan, to give her another tip of the hat, so she's been doing this for 25 years. And that alone in itself is just absolutely incredible, to keep the mission and the passion for that long. And the fight, I mean, it just is every single day. I mean, I look at this woman's calendar, I'm like, you don't have anything free for 4 months because you are just charging so far and so hard. And I agree to have, I mean, so many doctors here at Children's contribute their entire life to Morgan Adams Foundation, which is pretty amazing. Like the past 14 years, we've been funding all of their research and put them on the map. I agree, here to be in Colorado and to have the majority here, but to have no child be turned away. What I love about Joan is when she gets somebody calling saying, hey, I have this situation, even if this foundation can't help, she has these resources, and she's helped start and found and be a part of many different cancer boards that didn't exist, which is also a huge tribute to her. That is no easy task. I mean, these are boards that are national and some are international, and to be here in Colorado. I mean, just what she's accomplished, I mean, in a short period of time. 25 years in the big scheme of things is actually pretty short. And she has moved mountains and moved this needle pretty significantly. So, I mean, my hat's off to Morgan Adams Foundation and to Joan and to the entire team that is crusading with the amount of passion. I know when I talk to her, I'm like, you have been doing this for years, the type of education, the amount of knowledge that Kat has, but it's the whole staff that are just, and you can tell that it is ingrained inside of us to truly find a cure.
And you've recently joined Morgan Adams Foundation. Now, you've been doing a lot of nonprofit work for most of your life, and you've always had this little special interest for kids. Can you tell us about that? Why?
Yeah, sure. It has been, and it's been ingrained in me since I was a little kid. In the nonprofit world. My joke is always, it's a joke, not joke, but at 3 years old, my parents are very involved in the DCPA, and they put me in a dress and a big bow and gave me a balloon, and table to table I went and said, hey, my name is Thera, can you give me some of your money? And I was off to the races starting at that moment.
I can just see you doing that.
I had no shame, and it's continued into adulthood. But truly, when I went through high school and college, I started seeing the kiddos that were not getting what they needed, the resources that a lot of them, they just didn't have the resources. These are either with the community, the family, and the nonprofit world. So in 2008, I was in my early 20s. Everyone's going to now know how old I am. I started a couple nonprofits. It started from the Elway Foundation and then the Kemp Foundation. And then they had, again, it's people that were not being served in the community. The Kemp Foundation is amazing for children. I helped start the Kemp Champions, which is in your 20s and 30s, and that helped on the educational side of kiddos. And then I founded Rocky Mountain Active 2030, which is now Rocky Mountain Alliance. And we wrote grants to kiddos who didn't have the funding, either to go from middle school to high school to college. And as I continued, my child was born six-ish years ago, and a little bit of change, and he had a lot of medical issues. And I got thrown into a very scary, dark world. And my heart went out to children who didn't have the treatments and the families that didn't have the resources, because it is so unknown. And truly, I've never been so beside myself, truly. And so I understand what families go through. And you are so terrified every single moment of, what am I going to do? And so my life changed 6 years ago. My kiddo didn't go the cancer route, but he had a few surgeries, one including an open heart surgery. So to find the doctors, to find the surgeons, to find the support, and also I want to go into that with the Morgan Adams Foundation, the type of support that's available to families is there. Because I think when you're going through it, when I went through it, it was tunnel vision. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know that a community existed. And so, I mean, I'd love to go into that with Kat, just to say, if you are a bereaved family, if you know someone that has a kiddo that is suffering with cancer, someone that's lost a kiddo with cancer, we have so many resources with the foundation. We have ambassador program with kiddos that come in and talk. We are having a family breakfast coming up this Sunday with around 70 people there that have all been affected by what we're talking about. It is such a tight-knit, strong community. And that is another thing I really want to hit home with is you are not alone. And we are here championing for every single kid, every single family, that we are here. Even if the Morgan Adams Foundation doesn't have the resource specifically, we will get you to the right people. So I just wanted to say that's a big part of who we are.
And a lot of
too.
that is finding the right people to actually help you go through that. I definitely understand that. If you're just joining in, we're speaking with Morgan Adams Foundation. Kat Russell, Director of Strategic Marketing, and Sarah Duke, Major Gifts Officer. MorganAdamsFoundation.org. Definitely check it out. And you did kind of mention the Seed, Bridge, Research Grant, stuff like that. On your website, how we do it, there's a big mention of funding collaboration. Can you get into a little bit of that right there for really providing the greatest number of treatments the most efficient way, how Morgan Adams does it?
Yeah, so we work with several other organizations. Are you talking about the funding collaboration, like when we work with other organizations to collaborate? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say a great example is what I just mentioned with the Osteosarcoma Institute. So the trial that I mentioned is a drug trial that is, it's a very, very promising trial. That is actually already at clinical stage. And so it's actually a high dollar investment. What we're funding is what's called a correlative trial that they ran out of money to fund this, but this is actually a critical piece of it, and it's built for us to fund. A correlative study actually studies a little bit more into why this drug is working, so we can better understand the science of it.
So it's not that it's working, it's
why.
actually
Yeah,
why.
yeah, and how can we put this drug to work in other cancers, or how can we put this drug to work better, more effectively? And it's the why behind it, and it really is much, I think, as important of a study as the clinical trial. Yeah, let's get this to market as fast as possible because we know this drug works, but now let's understand how can we make it better, or what else can we use it for, and even just why, because understanding the why, it can open up a whole other gateway of knowledge. So, but we love partnering with other organizations, and the collaborative thing piece of it also goes to probably speaks a little bit on that site too. What you're speaking to is our physicians and our researchers work collaboratively hand in hand, which is a unique model. A lot of our researchers are called physician scientists very specifically, because they not only are researchers behind at the bench level, but they are also actively seeing patients. So they get to see in real time, what their research is putting forth to. So I'll give a fantastic example. We had a kiddo who I believe had medulloblastoma, which is a brain tumor, and he had it, and he had it, was cured, hit the 5-year mark, but it relapsed. And oftentimes, relapsed medulloblastomas are intreatable. But his doctor, Dr. Nick Foreman, didn't want to give up. And so he was able to dial into using this omics technology, which is what I'm talking about, the genetic mapping and finding these interesting, the biomarkers. It's a really advanced gene therapy, was able to identify 2 unique genetic markers within his, I might be messing up the science, so forgive me. Please don't hold me. I'm so not a scientist. But he was able to understand 2 genes of his unique cancer and was able to try 2 different drugs together to treat his cancer. And within I think 3 years or something like that, his tumors were gone again. So, it's because he was able to identify those gene markers, and it was because of the knowledge of the treatments that we had funded in the past. So it's that kind of understanding and that collaboration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is amazing too. And the collaboration isn't just here in Colorado; you're nationwide.
We are, and
Yes.
international as well.
International as well.
There's one in Dallas Institute, is the one she was alluding to. They're in cahoots with people in Germany as well. Canada is another one. Of course, here in Colorado, that's the majority of the funding. But it was really great to hear Dr. Foreman speak at Children's Hospital, and he is very collaborative. And it's not only institutions, it's hospitals, it's other organizations, other foundations, because I love this about this organization. I have spoke to this at great length on the radio, is collaboration is huge. And research, I mean, Kat mentioned this, I think off air, it doesn't matter who or what you are. If you are diagnosed with cancer, you want to find the cure. You want a solution no matter where it comes from. And if someone says, well, we can't help you, but we can point you in the right direction because we have all of this huge network, that to me is very powerful. And to work with other people, because Morgan Adams Foundation is working on 33, I believe, different trials as we speak. And that's just us, let alone what the rest of the world is working on. And so if we're all after the same solution, which is to cure cancer, why not work together?
Right. Yeah, we're funding a couple different studies at Stanford, a couple different studies at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So yeah, we're nationwide for sure.
And even internationally, I'm curious, do you notice a difference between different countries for research and development and funds? Really specifically, just kind of the barriers you have to break down to get stuff done, really, with the funds that you are collecting.
It's interesting, so one of our employees is out of Canada, and it's tends to be a little bit easier in a country that is socialized medicine, right? Because there's just a little bit more gateways to access there, right? But I think every country is just going to be culturally a little bit different.
Right.
Like I said, that story, in France, they didn't have to go break down any regulations.
Right.
But we had those regulations. Actually, it was laws that were put into place back in World War II, believe. Those laws were the ones that were preventing us from biopsying and from operating on those kids with a DIPG.
From World War II.
From World War II, because they were put in place because we were, experimenting on prisoners of war. And they said, you cannot do this anymore. This is unethical. I agree with those laws,
Right. Well,
So,
yeah.
and so but who knew when they put those laws in place in World War II that it would end up affecting, just trying to push forth a cure with cancer.
For research,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I, and it's funny talking to those parents because, or Joan telling the stories about talking to the parents that agreed to have their kids biopsied, and knowing that they could, there was a chance they could die on the table. And they're like, you know what, if there's a chance this could lead to a cure, that they were okay with that.
And it's amazing how, Morgan Adams can do something where they can get that person from France over to testify to move the research further. So I think that's absolutely amazing. When it comes to, you've shared a lot that's kind of current right here, the great improvements that are happening right now. What are both of you more excited about moving forward with Morgan Adams for the years to come?
Well, so I will say about it happened right after COVID, and a large majority of our funding, we'll get into this later, but we throw amazing parties. Our parties are not your traditional galas, get a dress, get a nice dress on and go have a dinner and drink. Our parties are awesome. And trust us, we'll spend plenty of time talking about that.
That's coming up here soon.
That's coming up, yeah, just so you guys know. But a lot of our funding does come from events. It's just how we were built. So COVID hit, and that devastated our organization. We had to lay off half of our staff, more than half of our staff, and we were at a breaking point where we weren't sure what we were going to do, and took a moment of Joan and the board saying, should we hang up shop? What's the right? That's not the
Close up shop. Is it time to close up shop, or are we steaming through this and powering through?
And they decided, they were just like, nope, let's go big or go home. So they wrote, a strategic plan, and we, have a mission right now. We're funding $1.5 million a year, and we are going to wanting to hit 5 million very quickly. So we are going big. That's our mission, and we're going to continue the national push. Like I said, I think I've listed our big ones: Phoenix Children's Osteosarcoma Institute in Dallas. We actually brought an incredible program in-house last year, a program called the Will Strong Leukemia. It was the Will Strong Leukemia Foundation, headed up by a local Colorado woman, Claudia Beniatas, and she lost her youngest child, Will, to leukemia. And leukemia is actually, so like I think I said, it's the most prevalent of childhood cancers. Because it's the most prevalent, it's actually had the most advancements in it. And it has, and some types of leukemia are actually 80% curable. It's still the curable in quotations, the 5-year mark. But it's still, even though it's had that many advancements, it's still the cancer that most kids die from. So it's not curable. It's not 100% cured. That needs so much more work. And her son is the perfect, poster child for that. He died when he was 15 years old of leukemia. I think he lived maybe a year after his diagnosis. And so after I can speak a little bit to his story, she can speak much better. But right when he was a very old soul, and when he was dying, got really, really interested in research and wanted to learn more about it. And so she promised him that she would carry on his legacy and really fund more research. So she's to date, he passed away in 2021, I believe. To date, she's funded $500,000 of research towards leukemia just on her own. And so we brought her in-house, and with that, we're going to broaden our leukemia program, really take that to the next level. We've created a partnership with the Witkowski Lab, which is actually at Anschutz as well. And so we're broadening that and making a really big push there. And we're going to take that program nationally as well. So I'm super excited about that. We also have this really unique program that we funded, and it's actually a wholly owned subsidiary, which is a really funny thing for a nonprofit to say, but it's a program called Radflix, and you can check that. I think their website is called radflix.org, but we fund them fully right now. And so when kids are in radiation, they're basically in this, enclosed metal box. And oftentimes they have to they have to lay completely still for a decent amount of time, quite a few minutes. And when they're little, when they can't lay still, they have to be sedated. Or they under anesthesia, which means oftentimes an overnight in the hospital. And it really, you talk to some of our parents, and it's the one time the parent can't be there with the child, and so you have to just watch them go into this enclosed metal box and just shut them off to the world. And it's heart-wrenching for the kid, it's heart-wrenching for the parent. It's awful. So what Radflix does is it's this interesting technology that allows the kiddo to watch their favorite movies or shows while they're in radiation. because I mean, a normal television, an iPad or an iPhone, they're going to get A, destroyed by the radiation, or B, block the radiation from getting to the child. This is a streaming technology on the screen that doesn't impact the radiation at all. And so it just locks into whatever streaming service the hospital is onto. And so then the kiddo, gets to feel A, like a kid again. They get to choose what program, so it gives them some semblance of control. And it gives them, I mean, they almost get to sort of look forward to this treatment, which is funny to say, but it is. And so it gives them that little bit of sense of I can be a kid again, right? And so we funded them initially. We just installed them. We're now into the 2.0 version of Radflix. It's in CU Anschutz, and it's in I believe Cincinnati, a center in Cincinnati. I believe it's the Proton Center in Cincinnati. It's in the New York Proton Center, and Columbus. There's a location in Columbus, and we're going to install in Toronto here soon. But my goal is to get that in every institution that's giving a child radiation. And heck, give it to adults too. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why not, but anyway, that is also a nonprofit, and we really want to take that also. And our kind of mission is to fund the future of childhood cancer treatments. While that's not research oriented, that is absolutely the future of cancer treatments, and it's making that treatment, which is really such a very unpleasant treatment, it's making just a little bit more bearable for the kids.
That is very cool. I really like that. That is an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into fun part. You guys raise a lot of money through events, and I know firsthand, same with Sarah, because last year you guys did race cars, and members of K4CO were actually able to go into a race car, which was
nice.
Awesome. I loved every minute of it. Sarah didn't like the braking aspect of it through the
I
course.
did. He kept saying we're going to go fast. I'm like, you're going 130. Let's go faster. But I'm crazy.
It's a very windy course, so
was.
you definitely have to use a lot of brakes on that.
Yes. I mean, that's what got me interested is somebody on the staff last year stood up and said, we're fighting pediatric cancer and we're going to go race around in cars. Like, I need to go find out more about this.
That's a way to fight cancer. I like
It
it.
is. It's so unique. To Kat's point, I mean, galas are amazing. And the whole point by getting dressed up and doing the dinner and all of that is to raise money. And I like that we go about it a little bit uniquely and a little bit differently. So we do. I want to make sure I do mention this. Our next event is called What's Up Doc, which is April 22nd. If you would like to join, please reach out, let us know. You can go to morganadamsfoundation.org. Again, that's April 22nd, and it's a lunch at Cherry Hills Country Club. You do have to RSVP, so make sure that if you do want to come that you go and contact us. And it's great because we're going to have a doctor there that is explaining everything that we just went over, but in a doctor's world.
Yeah.
And you get
So
a really
I won't
nice
be able
lunch.
to understand any of it, is what you're saying.
You could, I understand it a little bit.
Right.
So
It's actually
yes.
two doctors. So
Two,
yeah,
okay.
so and we understand that people that go to that event oftentimes don't know anything about the world of pediatric cancer.
All
so
the language and
yeah,
exactly.
so we usually start off with the basics and then go into, why it's so important to funding. And then we have the head of our research lab, who is this world esteemed, renowned doctor that speaks at these world, conferences all over the world. And then we have the head of the leukemia program at Children's. So they're both speaking, which is
wow.
really exciting. So,
It is very cool.
yeah.
Very
So again,
nice.
yeah, that's April 22nd. For those of you that would like to find out more information just about the foundation, about what's going on in the cancer research world, that is a great introduction. And then the big event, the biggest one that Morgan Adams does is at the end of August. It's the 22nd through the 24th. And it's the Morgan Adams Foundation Concours d'Elegance. And it is
Say that again.
Three times fast.
the Morgan Adams Foundation Concours d'Elegance.
Bless you.
Thank you. Which is amazing. And I cannot wait. I mean, I've seen pictures, and this is a fabulous party.
It
So
is.
it takes place at the Centennial Airport. Again, this is, I believe, the last weekend of August. The 23rd and 24th are the two main days. And if you are a car person, there are 40 to 50 classic cars there. There are airplanes, there are motorcycles. And of course, you're going to have great food. It's amazing. So come to the
Yes.
Centennial Airport. So there's that big gala. Plus, there are these side events going on.
Yes.
Oh,
Wait,
go
look, I
ahead.
have to go a little bit more because it's classic, it's vintage, it's rare, and it's incredible. So we get, we partner with Ferrari of Denver to bring out all their fancy cars. I mean, you'll see some of the most amazing rare automobiles there too, all the fancy ones, and then also a lot of airplanes there. Gulfstream comes out, you get to hop on a lot of PJs. So it's like if you are into any kind of luxury automobile or motorcycle or airplane, this is the event for you. And it just sprawls out all across Centennial Airport. We've got an amazing silent auction, an amazing live auction, and it's 2,000 people that sells out pretty quickly every year. And people fly in and drive in for this event because it's one of the best, I guess. Evidently, I'm not a car person, but evidently these Concours events are kind of a thing across the country, and ours is really one of the better ones in the country. And so we draw people from all over the country. So I would buy your tickets fast.
I would too. I mean, they have one in Pebble Beach, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you're here in Colorado and want to go to one, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And there are little events throughout that weekend too, which is amazing. It's Watches and Whiskey, I believe, which is exactly what it sounds like. And one I'm really excited about, Teas and Treasures. So I always think of the movie How to Lose a Guy in 60 Days. So for those of you that have seen it, have you seen that yet? Okay.
I know 10 days.
10 days? Did I say 60 days?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's a long-
Sorry.
Pretty sure anybody can
I
lose,
could lose a guy
in
in
2
60
months.
days. That's true.
I'm pretty
10
sure
days.
I have.
Sorry. It's good to have people correct me. How to Lose a Guy in 10 days. Thank you for correcting me. So for those of you that have seen it, so she goes to this gala and she tries on this beautiful diamond necklace. So it's going to be like that.
Yeah,
And
it's-
so you get to try on very elegant, pricey stuff. So
We
saving.
partner with Bonhams, the auction house, and they bring, I think for both the watches and whiskey and for that event. So the tea and treasures is the jewelry, and then the watches is kind of the exclusive fancy watches. So it's
I get
pretty
to
fun.
feel like a beauty queen for a moment. So yeah, that's a great event. And then you mentioned the golf tournament as well.
Yes, so the golf tournament is May 19th at Meridian Golf Club. It's a great way to get on a private course. It's one of the earliest golf tournaments of the season too. So, and that's called the Big Party. Get it? Golf Club. We guarantee you it'll be a great time. That's actually headed up by Claudia, who is the head of our leukemia program that I mentioned earlier, and she is a kick in the pants. So it's going to be a riot.
Nice.
So we still have a few foursomes left and opportunity to sponsor us as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So people ask me a lot how they can get involved. And there are so many different ways. We talked a little bit about it earlier. So if you personally have gone through something, if you have a kiddo that has just been diagnosed or you know someone that is lost, we have those resources. But there's so many other ways of getting involved. Of course, funds are always amazing, but there's lots of ways of giving financially. We're building up our endowment, which I am super excited for because this is the future of cancer research. That's exactly what an endowment does. So if you're able to give money to that and to be able to sustain this going forward, that's a big push for us because we need this money for the DIPG funding to get that going. This is hopefully going to be a cure, so we need the funds with that. It's great to have companies get involved too. Your employees can get really inspired and motivated. I know we have so much philanthropic giving here in Colorado. So if you're listening and you work for a company and you're like, hey, this really touches me, I want to go talk to my CEO. Or if you are the CEO and you want to give monthly giving, we can do that. We have estates, we have wills, we have people that give all sorts of different ways, and we can be really creative that way. We also love volunteers. If you want to come in and volunteer for an event, if you want to come, we have great people that come actually into the foundation that make phone calls for us, that assist with that to help thanking our amazing donors. There's always a spot to get involved, and sponsorship. We couldn't do our events without sponsors. So if you want to highlight your company, we have around 20 events per year. We highlighted just a couple. And it's so unique and fabulous. So if you want to get out and start giving in a way and be involved in the community and highlight your company, there are lots of different ways to give.
There's many different ways, especially just looking at the website, morganadamsfoundation.org, under Get Involved. There's just so many different ways that you can give, from all the way as simple as getting a license plate, too.
That is so
such a great
amazing.
point, yeah.
Do you want to do we have time to talk about that
Yeah,
real
I
quick?
think, yeah, we got a couple minutes left. That's
Okay,
fine.
great.
This is really cool
Oh,
project.
this is actually was started by one of our kiddos. Gabe, his story is on that site. So on that website you can read about it. But he was the one that he says, we have all these license plates for all these other things. Why don't we have one for pediatric cancer? So he was the one that really pushed this through, and you can see pictures of it when Hickenlooper was governor. He signed it in, and now you can go and order a license plate that supports supports pediatric cancer research and benefits both the Morgan Adams Foundation and also Cops for Cancer, which is another wonderful organization, or Cops Against Cancer, sorry, not for cancer. We wouldn't want that cancer. We wouldn't want that organization.
No, we wouldn't want that.
No. So, anyway, but it's a great story, and it's a great way to promote awareness and just and be an ally for both of these incredible organizations. So
Yeah.
What also is amazing, and you can speak to this too. So if you go to Morgan Adams Foundation Facebook page, it's amazing. That is Kat 100%. And you do a really great job. I mean, I was going through, I think, a full year last night, and just it highlights all of these kiddos and everything that the foundation has done. And it's very rewarding to go through and look at and really know about the foundation. But what I didn't know with your King Supers card is you can actually sign up with your card and to donate every time you swipe it, which I didn't know about. So you posted it. So you tell us what that's about.
yeah, actually, I didn't post that.
Oh, I'm sorry. It magically made its
No,
way.
that was one of our families who found that out and posted, and we just shared it. So, but there's
Gotcha.
pretty clear instructions on our Facebook page if you want to go. But so I believe that in King Supers, this is great. They allow any nonprofit. We love organizations that support local nonprofits, and King Supers is one of them. So, but we would recommend, us as your nonprofit, selfishly, slightly, but it's a great way, a super easy way to support us. So, and we are a 4-star Charity Navigator organization. We run lean and mean. It is so important for Joan that we run ethically and that every dollar possible goes to research. So, and that's yet another reason why I have all the respect in the world for us. So,
It is absolutely amazing. I love it. And if you just happen to catch kind of the end, this whole interview will be available on our social media platforms for about a month, and then it kicks off. But then it's always, and all of our interviews are available on YouTube, K4CO Radio, so you can always go there as well. We've been speaking with Kat Russell, Director of Strategic Marketing, and Sarah Duke, Major Gifts Officer for the Morgan Adams Foundation. Really, and I mean, very, very, very close to just really getting that close to taking care of cancer,
Help us move the needle.
which is amazing.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can be a part of curing cancer.
Yes.
I can't even imagine.
Especially
putting
for
my name
kids,
on
and I had
that.
no idea
Exactly.
they get so little of
Right.
funding. I mean, you said 4 to 8% or
4
something,
to 8% of the national
which is just
research
absolutely
budget.
insane.
It
So,
is.
Definitely check them out, morganadamsfoundation.org. To get involved, go to their website. There's so many different ways you can get involved. You can call them directly, even 303-758-2130. All their information has been on the bottom of the screen during this interview. You can also go to k4coradio.com under nonprofits, and we have links there to all of their social media platforms, as well as their website and information about them. So thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you all. This has just been such an honor, and I can't tell you how much just to have this amount of time on your platform. It's just such a gift. So thank you so much.
Of course. No, it's been on our honor. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you very much for tuning in. Again, morganadamsfoundation.org. We got a great day of music coming ahead for you, starting with Kev on the radio at 2:00, just right around the corner. So thank you very much for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of the day.